Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to uncover the secrets of Jefferson nickels, one of the most fascinating and valuable U.S. coins you can still find in circulation or tucked away in old collections. While most people think a nickel is only worth 5 cents, the truth is that certain Jefferson nickels are highly collectible and can be worth much more, sometimes hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the year, mint mark, and condition. That's why I want you to stay with me all the way to the end of this video, because I'm going to walk you through the most valuable Jefferson nickels, explain exactly what details make them rare, and show you why collectors are always on the hunt for these coins. Every minute of this video could reveal an important clue that helps you identify a Jefferson nickel that's worth far more than face value. If you're passionate about coins, rare nickels, and valuable finds that could be hiding in your pocket change, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with all my future videos where I share coin values, rare varieties, and tips that could help you turn everyday coins into valuable treasures. Let's get started. First up, the 1974 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark is a coin that collectors and everyday people often overlook, but it holds more value than most realize. When you come across a 1974 nickel without any mint mark, you are looking at a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Unlike Denver or San Francisco coins, Philadelphia coins from this period usually carried no mint mark, and this absence can make them interesting for collectors who pay close attention to details. Even though the Jefferson nickel has been a common coin in circulation for decades, certain years, certain conditions, and certain small details can make one particular nickel more valuable than others, and the 1974 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark is a perfect example. Now, let's dive deeper into why this coin is worth talking about. The Jefferson nickel series has been produced since 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and it has become one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. By 1974, the United States was going through inflation and economic changes, but nickels still remained in everyone's pocket change. That's why so many people dismiss them as ordinary coins. But when you take a closer look at the 1974 Jefferson nickel without a mint mark, you start to notice the finer points that make it more than just pocket change. Collectors are always on the lookout for coins from the 1970s in high-end condition, and the 1974 nickel is a year where condition, strike, and mint mark placement all matter for determining value. The obverse of the 1974 Jefferson nickel features the profile of Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, and the author of the Declaration of Independence. This design by Felix Schlag had already been used for decades by 1974, but every year, new dies were prepared, and subtle changes in strike quality and minting pressure could affect the look of the coin. The reverse shows Monticello, Jefferson's home, with the words E pluribus unum, Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. Collectors always pay close attention to details like how sharp Monticello appears, how well the steps are struck, and whether the lettering is crisp or weak. In 1974, Philadelphia nickels often had softer strikes, so a fully detailed coin with strong steps on Monticello can be considered much more valuable. Now, one of the biggest reasons why the 1974 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark is valuable comes down to condition and collectability. Circulated examples are still common, but collectors seek out coins in higher grades, those with luster, no scratches, and strong details. In uncirculated condition, especially those with what collectors call full steps on Monticello, the value can increase significantly. A 1974 nickel without a mint mark in average circulation might only seem worth 5 cents, but in mint state condition with full steps, it can be worth far more to collectors. Some well-preserved examples can sell for impressive premiums at auctions or coin shows because they are harder to find than many people realize. Think about this. Millions of these coins were minted in 1974, yet most were spent and worn down in daily circulation. Decades of handling, vending machines, and pocketware have left most examples with scratches, worn details, and faded designs. That's why finding a sharp, lustrous 1974 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark is special. Collectors know that time has already reduced the population of high-quality examples. And when supply goes down while collector demand remains strong, value goes up. That's why this nickel is not just pocket change, but a piece of numismatic history that can be worth real money if preserved well. Another important factor is historical significance. The 1974 Jefferson nickel was minted just 2 years before the United States celebrated its bicentennial. The 1970s were a transitional era for American coinage, and collectors love coins from this decade because they represent an important part of modern U.S. history. Having a coin like the 1974 nickel without a mint mark connects you to that time period, and it makes the piece more appealing not only to Jefferson nickel specialists, but also to history enthusiasts who collect coins as tangible pieces of America's past. For collectors, building a complete Jefferson nickel set means gathering coins from every year, every mint, and in the best condition possible. When it comes to the 1974 no mint mark nickel, it becomes a necessary piece for completing a full collection. That demand helps keep its value higher than many people expect. And when you add in the possibility of finding one in pristine condition, the coin becomes even more desirable. This is why knowledgeable collectors never overlook 1970s Jefferson nickels. They know the right one can be worth much more than face value. It's also worth mentioning that errors and varieties can play a role in increasing the value of the 1974 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark. Sometimes, coins from this year were struck with small variations, die cracks, weak strikes, or misaligned dies that create unique pieces. Collectors pay attention to these minting errors because they make a coin stand out from millions of ordinary examples. Even small differences can make a nickel more collectible and valuable in the numismatic market. When talking about value, it's not only about what a price guide says. Actual value comes from what collectors are willing to pay. If you take a 1974 no mint mark Jefferson nickel in average condition, most people will see it as worth only 5 cents. But take that same coin in a higher grade, with strong details, sharp steps, and clean surfaces, and it can easily sell for much more. That's the beauty of coin collecting. The condition and rarity factor can transform everyday coins into valuable treasures. So when you hold a 1974 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark, remember that you are not just holding spare change. You are holding a collectible coin that connects to American history, that has the potential for significant value depending on condition, and that continues to be sought after by collectors around the world. The next time you search through pocket change, coin jars, or inherited collections, keep an eye out for this nickel. It may look ordinary at first, but once you know its background and value potential, you'll understand why collectors never ignore it. This is why the 1974 Jefferson nickel with no mint mark is valuable. It's a coin that reminds us to always look closer at the details, to appreciate the history in our hands, and to recognize the potential value hiding in everyday coins. The 1962 Jefferson nickel with the D mint mark is a coin that may look ordinary at first glance, but it has a lot more value and history than most people realize. Many people still overlook Jefferson nickels, thinking of them as common change, but the truth is that the 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark can be quite valuable depending on its condition, rarity, and collector demand. In this video, we're going to take a detailed look at the 1962 D Jefferson nickel, why it's valuable, what makes it special, and why collectors search for it. So stay with me until the end, because by the time we are done, you'll see this coin in a completely different way. The Jefferson nickel series began in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, and it has become one of the longest-running coin series in United States history. Designed by Felix Schlag, the obverse features the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, while the reverse showcases Monticello, Jefferson's Virginia home. For collectors, each year and each mint tells a unique story. The 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark was struck at the Denver Mint, and that tiny D placed on the reverse to the right of Monticello is the key identifier that sets this coin apart. Now let's talk about mintage and availability. In 1962, the Denver Mint struck over 280 million nickels, so at first glance, you might think this coin is extremely common. And in a way, it is. If you're just looking for a circulated example, many 1962D Jefferson nickels still exist in worn condition, often found in pocket change, coin jars, or inherited collections. But the real value of this coin comes into play when you consider condition, strike quality, and collector demand. While millions were minted, only a small fraction survive in pristine mint state condition. That's where the rarity and the value come from. Condition is the most important factor when it comes to the value of the 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark. Coins that have circulated heavily for decades will show scratches, dull surfaces, and loss of detail. These well-worn coins might only be worth face value, but in higher grades, uncirculated or mint state, the story changes completely. A 1962D Jefferson nickel in mint state 65 or higher can be worth far more than just 5 cents. And if the coin has what collectors call full steps on Monticello, showing sharp details on the building steps, then the value increases significantly. Full steps nickels are always in demand, and the 1962D is no exception. Why are full steps Jefferson nickels so valuable? The answer lies in strike quality. Many coins struck at the Denver Mint in the early 1960s suffered from weak strikes, meaning that fine details were not fully impressed on the coin surface. As a result, finding a 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark that has strong details, sharp steps, and clean surfaces is not easy. Collectors recognize this and pay higher prices for these scarce examples. In fact, among Jefferson nickel specialists, a full steps 1962D nickel can be considered a condition rarity, making it a prize for any collection. Another aspect that adds to the value of the 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is errors and varieties. During the minting process, mistakes sometimes occurred, such as repunched mint marks, die cracks, or misaligned dies. One of the known varieties for the 1962D nickel includes a repunched D mint mark, where the letter D was punched more than once, creating a doubled or shadow-like effect. These repunched mint mark varieties are especially interesting for collectors who enjoy hunting for small differences that make a coin unique. An error or variety can transform an ordinary 1962D Jefferson nickel into a more valuable collectible. Now let's talk about collector demand. The Jefferson nickel is a popular series to collect because it is relatively affordable compared to older U.S. coin series, yet it offers plenty of challenges, especially when it comes to high-grade examples and full steps coins. To complete a Jefferson nickel set, collectors need coins from every year and every mint. That makes the 1962D nickel a required piece. Even though many exist in worn condition, serious collectors will seek out the best preserved examples, and that constant demand helps maintain and even increase the value of the coin. Historical context also plays a big role. The year 1962 was part of a fascinating time in American history. The early 1960s, a period of social change, economic growth, and cultural development. Coins from this era remind us of the past, and when you hold a 1962D Jefferson nickel, you're holding a piece of that history. Many people alive today remember using nickels like this in everyday transactions, which adds a nostalgic element for some collectors. The fact that this coin has survived for more than 60 years makes it a small but meaningful piece of American heritage. When it comes to actual market value, the 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark shows a wide range. A circulated coin might only bring a few cents, but an uncirculated mint state coin can be worth several dollars or more. If the coin is graded by a professional service at a very high grade like MS65 or higher, and especially with full steps, then its value can climb significantly higher, sometimes reaching into the tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on rarity and demand. Error varieties can add even more. This shows why collectors take the time to study and search for the best examples. They know the difference between an ordinary coin and a valuable one can be dramatic. It's also important to note that Jefferson nickels from the 1960s are becoming increasingly collectible as time goes on. For decades, people ignored these coins because they seemed too modern. But now, with more collectors focusing on completing Jefferson nickel sets and searching for full steps coins, the demand has grown. The 1962D Jefferson nickel is part of that trend, and as more collectors enter the hobby, its value potential continues to increase. So let's summarize why the 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is valuable. First, condition matters. Uncirculated examples with luster and sharp details are much scarcer than worn coins. Second, full steps coins are rare and highly desirable. Third, era varieties like repunched mint marks add uniqueness and value. Fourth, the historical background of the early 1960s gives the coin additional appeal. And finally, collector demand for completing sets keeps this coin in the spotlight. This is why the 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is not just another 5-cent piece. It's a coin with history, it's a coin with rarity, and it's a coin with real collector value. The next time you search through your pocket change, a coin jar, or an inherited collection, take a closer look at every Jefferson nickel from the 1960s. If you come across a 1962 with a D mint mark in great condition, you might be holding something worth far more than its face value. The 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is valuable because it combines high mintage numbers with low survival in top grades. It includes collectible varieties, and it remains an essential piece for anyone building a complete Jefferson nickel set. That is why collectors continue to look for it, why dealers buy and sell it, and why you should always pay attention when you find one. So remember, the 1962 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is valuable, it's collectible, and it's worth far more than 5 cents when preserved properly. Next up, the 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is one of those coins that many people see as ordinary pocket change, but in reality, it can be far more valuable than most realize. Collectors know that even modern coins can hold hidden value, and the 1987 Jefferson nickel with the D mint mark is a perfect example. This coin was struck at the Denver Mint, and that little D mint mark is the detail that identifies it. While hundreds of millions were produced, the truth is that not all of them survived in great condition. And when you take into account collector demand, rarity in high grades, and special varieties, you begin to understand why the 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is valuable. Let's start with the basics. The Jefferson nickel has been part of American coinage since 1938. Designed by Felix Schlag, the obverse shows the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, and the reverse displays Monticello, Jefferson's historic home in Virginia. This design remained largely unchanged for decades, and by the time 1987 came around, it was already a familiar sight to every American. But each year, the U.S. Mint struck nickels at different locations, and the Denver Mint contributed heavily to the nation's circulating coinage. The 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is a product of that Denver production, and although it may look like a typical coin, it is more than that when you consider condition and rarity. In 1987, the Denver Mint produced more than 438 million Jefferson nickels. That number sounds huge, and it is. But sheer mintage does not tell the whole story. Most of those coins went into circulation, and once a coin circulates for decades, it suffers wear, scratches, and damage. Today, the majority of 1987 D. Jefferson nickels you might find in your change are heavily circulated and worn down. These are usually worth only face value. But here's the key. Collectors do not settle for worn coins. They want coins that survive in pristine condition, coins that have never been used in commerce, coins that still have their original luster from the day they left the mint. And when it comes to the 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark, those uncirculated gems are far scarcer than people think. That is where the true value lies. Now let's talk about condition in more detail, because condition is the single biggest factor in determining the 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark value. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect coin. Most circulated nickels from 1987 fall in the range of grades that have little to no collector premium. But in mint state, especially MS65, MS66, or higher, the value increases sharply. At these higher grades, every detail of Jefferson's portrait and Monticello stands out clearly. The coin shows no wear, has brilliant luster, and only minimal marks. These are the coins that collectors pay strong premiums for, because they are difficult to find after so many years of circulation. One of the most important features collectors look for in Jefferson nickels is known as full steps. This refers to the clarity of the steps on Monticello. On many Jefferson nickels, the steps appear weak or blended together due to striking pressure at the mint. But on a select few coins, the steps are fully defined and uninterrupted. These full steps examples are much rarer and command much higher prices. A 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark that shows full steps can be worth significantly more than an ordinary mint state coin. Collectors consider full steps coins as condition rarities, and they form a special category within Jefferson nickel collecting. Another factor that makes the 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark valuable is the presence of minting errors and varieties. During the minting process, dies can crack, clash, or even strike coins slightly off-center. There are examples of 1987 D Jefferson nickels with die cracks that create raised lines on a surface, or with doubling on certain letters or numbers. Some coins may even have a repunched D mint mark, where the mint mark was struck into the die more than once, creating a doubled or shadow-like appearance. These varieties and errors make coins stand out, and collectors love them because each one is unique. Error coins often sell for much more than ordinary examples, making them especially valuable. Beyond errors and condition, the 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark also holds historical and nostalgic value. The late 1980s were a unique time in American history, with cultural shifts, economic developments, and changes in daily life. Coins from this decade remind collectors of that period. For people who grew up in the 1980s, nickels from 1987 can be a nostalgic piece of their childhood. This connection to memory and history increases demand, as collectors often seek coins that represent meaningful years in their lives. That human connection adds another layer of value to the 1987 D Jefferson nickel. Another point to consider is collector demand for completing full sets. Jefferson nickels are one of the most popular U.S. coin series to collect because they are relatively affordable and accessible. Collectors often build complete date and mint mark sets, which means they need every year from every mint. That makes the 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark a required piece for anyone completing a set. While circulated examples are easy to find, the challenge comes with high-grade, pristine coins. That is why collectors are always looking for the 1987 D nickel in top condition. It fills a key spot in their collection, and they are willing to pay for quality. Now let's focus again on value. A 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark in average circulated condition is worth face value. But in mint state, the value increases. At MS65 or higher, the coin can be worth several dollars or more, depending on the market. With full steps, the value jumps even higher. And if the coin has an error variety, the price can climb dramatically. This wide range of values shows why collectors carefully examine every coin. The difference between an ordinary nickel and a valuable collectible can be just a matter of condition or a small error that most people would overlook. So why is the 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark valuable? The answer is clear. It's valuable because high-grade examples are scarce, because full steps coins are rare, because error varieties exist, because collectors demand them to complete sets, and because the coin carries historical significance. All of these factors combine to make the 1987 D Jefferson nickel worth much more than just 5 cents. The next time you come across a 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark, don't dismiss it as ordinary pocket change. Take a closer look. Check the obverse for the D mint mark. Examine Jefferson's portrait for sharpness. Look at Monticello and study the steps. If the coin is well preserved, you could be holding something far more valuable than you realize. Collectors are always searching for coins like this, and the right example can bring surprising value. The 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark teaches us that value is not always obvious. A coin that millions of people used every day can become a valuable collectible when preserved in top condition. It reminds us that history, rarity, and demand all play a role in determining worth. And it proves that sometimes hidden treasures are sitting right in our pocket change. This is why the 1987 Jefferson nickel with D mint mark is valuable, and why collectors continue to search for it. Next up, The 1992 Jefferson nickel, with P mint mark, may seem like just another piece of pocket change, but collectors know this coin can actually be valuable. The Jefferson nickel series has been one of the most popular coin series in the United States since it began in 1938, and every date and mint mark carries its own story. When we look at the 1992 Jefferson nickel with the P mint mark from the Philadelphia Mint, we uncover details that make this coin more than just 5 cents. Its history, its mintage, its condition, and its rarity and higher grades all combine to give it collector value. And in this video, we're going to go deep into why the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark is valuable, what collectors look for, and why this coin matters. The Jefferson nickel was designed by Felix Schlag and has been part of U.S. coinage for decades. On the obverse, we see a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, and on the reverse, we see Monticello, Jefferson's home in Virginia. This design became one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. By 1992, the design had already been used for over 50 years, and coins struck in the early 1990s are now beginning to gain more attention from collectors, especially as older examples disappear from circulation. The 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which served as one of the major producers of U.S. circulating coinage. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 444 million Jefferson nickels in 1992 with the P mint mark. While that number sounds large, and it is, the important detail is that most of these coins were released into circulation, where they were used in commerce for years and decades. Coins that circulate for so long naturally pick up scratches, dings, and wear. That means the majority of 1992 Jefferson nickels with P mint mark that we see today are heavily worn and have little collector premium. But that doesn't mean they aren't valuable in the right condition. Condition is everything when it comes to determining the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark value. Coins are graded on the 70-point scale, with 70 being a perfect coin. A circulated 1992 P Jefferson nickel is usually only worth face value, but when you find examples in mint state, especially at MS65, MS66, or higher, the value jumps. These higher-grade coins show full details of Jefferson's portrait and Monticello, with brilliant mint luster and no signs of wear. Collectors prize these coins because they are far less common than circulated pieces. While millions were struck, only a small fraction survive today in such pristine condition. One special detail that collectors chase when it comes to Jefferson nickels is known as full steps. This refers to the clarity of the steps on Monticello on the reverse of the coin. Most Jefferson nickels, including the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark, were struck with weak detail on these steps. But when a coin shows every line clearly, with no breaks, it is considered a full steps coin. These full steps examples are significantly scarcer, and therefore, they command strong premiums in the market. If you have a 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark that displays full steps, then you may have a coin that is truly valuable. Another factor that can increase value for the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark is the presence of mint errors and varieties. During minting, mistakes sometimes occur, and those mistakes create collectible oddities. Some examples include off-center strikes, die cracks that leave raised lines on the coin, or even double dies, where certain letters or numbers appear doubled. Another possible variety is a repunched mint mark, where the P was stamped more than once, creating a shadow effect. Each of these error types can raise the value of a 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark because they are far rarer than normal examples. Collectors love error coins because they are unique, and they are willing to pay premiums to own them. The historical context of the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark also adds to its appeal. The early 1990s were a transitional period in U.S. coinage. The mint was preparing for changes in design and updates to coin production. Coins from this period represent a snapshot of American history. For many people, the 1990s carry strong nostalgia, and coins from 1992 are tied to those memories. Collectors often seek coins that connect to meaningful years in their lives, birth years, anniversaries, or personal milestones. This emotional connection gives additional value to coins like the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark. Collector demand is another major factor in value. Jefferson nickels are a popular series for new and experienced collectors alike. They are accessible because many dates can be found at low cost, but they are also challenging because of the pursuit of high-grade examples and full steps coins. For someone building a complete set, the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark is a required piece. And while it may be easy to find a circulated example, finding one in mint state with strong detail is the real challenge. That challenge drives demand and helps the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark maintain its collectible value. Let's focus again on the numbers. Over 444 million of these coins were made, but after more than 30 years, how many truly high-grade examples remain? The answer is, not nearly as many as people think. Most were used and abused in daily transactions. Only a small portion were saved directly from mint bags or rolls, kept in pristine condition by chance. These survivors are the ones collectors now fight for. That is why a 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark in MS65, MS66, or with full steps can be worth far more than face value. So, why is the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark valuable? The reasons are clear. It is valuable because condition rarities exist. It is valuable because full steps examples are much scarcer. It is valuable because rare varieties can command strong premiums. It is valuable because collectors demand it as part of completing a Jefferson nickel set. And it is valuable because it carries historical and nostalgic importance. All of these reasons combined make the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark a coin that deserves attention. When you come across a 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark, don't dismiss it as just another nickel. Take the time to look closely. Examine Jefferson's portrait for sharpness. Study the steps on Monticello. Check for mint errors or unusual details. If the coin is in excellent condition, or if it displays full steps, you might be holding a nickel that is worth more than you ever imagined. Many people overlook these details, but collectors know that the difference between an ordinary coin and a valuable collectible can come down to small features that others ignore. The 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark proves that even coins from the 1990s, which people often assume are too modern to matter, can hold hidden value. This coin reminds us that condition, rarity, and demand are the keys to understanding coin values. And it shows us that valuable coins are not just from the distant past. They can also be coins that circulated in our own lifetimes. This is why the 1992 Jefferson nickel with P mint mark is valuable, and why collectors continue to search for it today. And that wraps up today's look at these valuable coins. As you've seen, even coins like Jefferson nickels, Roosevelt dimes, Washington quarters, wheat pennies, and many others that seem ordinary and change can actually be worth money when you know what to look for. From mint marks to condition, from full steps to rare varieties, every detail matters, and that's what makes coin collecting so exciting. If you enjoyed learning about the value and history of these coins, I highly recommend you watch my previous video on Kennedy half-dollar coins. The Kennedy half-dollar is one of the most iconic coins in American history, and just like the nickels, dimes, and quarters we've discussed, some Kennedy half-dollars are incredibly valuable. You don't want to miss that video because it goes into detail about which Kennedy half-dollar coins to look for, what makes them rare, and why collectors are paying strong premiums for them. So before you click away, make sure to head over and watch my video on Kennedy half-dollar coins right after this one. It's packed with valuable information that will help you in your coin collecting journey. And of course, if you love learning about coin values, rarity, history, and the hidden treasures that might be sitting right in your pocket change, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Subscribing ensures you never miss future videos where we explore more coins, more hidden value, and more fascinating stories from U.S. coinage. So once again, watch my previous video on Kennedy half-dollar coins and hit that subscribe button so you can stay updated on all my future coin videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.